Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Charlie Ortiz, who serves as Executive Director of the WHIN Music Community Charter School. Charlie, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. I know this is definitely a busy time for many in school environments, but I'm so excited to have you on the show, talk to you about the great work that you guys are doing. And also I thought I'd ask a little about your leadership. But before that, I just thought I'd talk for any of our audience who may not be familiar with WHIN, could you just kind of share just a quick overview, especially of the structure of the school?
Yeah, happily. So WIN is a charter school based off of the principles of El Sistema, which is, I'm sure you know, is a social inclusion through music education program designed to end poverty. And so what it looks like at WIN is that every child has 2 periods of music every single day, alongside ELA, literacy, math, science, social studies, physical education, lunch, recess, and a lot of social emotional learning. And those 2 ensemble classes of music are really based on that concept of how do we show up together as a community of musicians and as just a community of young people or citizen artists. One of them is the choir and the other is the orchestra. So every child learns to play an orchestral instrument, and they stay with us throughout their tenure at the school, which is currently K-6, growing to K-8.
Awesome, awesome. And it's just such a wonderful institution and such an important institution. And I really love that structure. And as a number of organizations and schools look to see, can El Sistema, kind of help inform this work and approach that we have. So I thought I would delve in to a little of leadership and just style, and of course, anything you'd like to share. You've got just this wonderful experience, not only at WHIN, previously at Harlem Children's Zone, and beyond that, other institutions, and wanted to kind of talk to you about that. Many of those in our audience are in leadership roles in their institutions, and there's these regular challenges that sometimes arise with our team members and how we're able to be able to bring about the results for our institution that we want through our various team members. Other times it might just be relating to strategic planning, overarching kind of sense of where the institution's going. For some, it's relating to fund development or those types of things, or collaborations and partnerships. So overall, I wanted to kind of ask you both about kind of opportunities you see for leadership, things you use, as well as any challenges that you've experienced. So maybe first, just kind of, are there any aspects of best practices or adaptive leadership or sources of kind of leadership practices that you have found are most helpful for you as you approach leading at WHIN?
I mean, that's a great question. For me, it's kind of an ever-evolving process, if you will. And the thing that I kind of come back to, especially more and more over the past few years, as the school has scaled, is that I believe good leadership really kind of starts with understanding what the mission is and what the vision is, and being deeply committed to that, while also understanding what the current reality and situation is for so many people that are a part of engendering that mission. And so the concept of really actively listening and actively understanding not only my perspective of the organization, but also trying to really understand with a great deal of humility what everyone else's is, and what their perspective is, what their challenges are, what their successes are, what their drivers are. And I think that the more that I've done that, the easier it's been, and still not easy, but the easier it's been to take all of the more formal leadership things that I've been trained on or experienced and put that into practice. Because at the core of it, we briefly talked about this last time we spoke. Nothing happens without a great team. Like nothing great happens without a great many people doing a lot of work together. And so trying to be really mindful about all of the people that are involved in this, and how to really cultivate the group of us, which is, 60 something staff right now, 300 and some students, probably close to 1,000 parents, a whole bunch of donors, and a whole bunch of other folk,
Right.
trying to get us all in the right direction. And so listening is definitely a big part of it.
So, and I love that aspect of listening. And then I was going to ask you kind of about how you deal with all of those different constituencies, right? But first, just the kind of listening. And I'm wondering, are there any, kind of practices? So, in other words, I've had some conversations with leaders, and they're like, "Yeah, I'd love to, listen, but I feel like I don't, or I feel like I'm listening, but my team members apparently don't think I'm listening," right? That kind of thing. Are there any, either approaches or examples that you have of how you actually carry that out, right? So on any given day, you've got all of these different constituencies and various things to focus on. Do you carve out a time to listen, or is it a way in which you approach the conversations that you have with your team members? Kind of just curious how you approach it to make sure you're able to incorporate that listening.
So I feel like the more I'm in this role, the more I feel like a coach, like a sports coach or something, where it's really about trying to help another or groups of people increase their proficiency or their knowledge or their ability at XYZ. And you mentioned adaptive leadership, which is something that I believe is very near and dear to my leadership practice. And one of the things that I kind of find most key about the adaptive leadership work is that concept that there's, at any given situation with any given thing, there's a technical challenge unfolding and there's an adaptive challenge unfolding. And the technical is like something that's more tangible, something that is we just didn't have enough lunch for kids. So like we need to buy, we always do have enough lunch, by the way, but it's something tangible. We're like, oh, like just buy more lunch, right? But the adaptive is like, why didn't we? What are the things that are going on under the surface that prevented us from ordering enough? Or what is the financial concerns that are preventing us from being able to do whatever? I want to be clear, everyone has lunch every day. But just as an example, that concept of there's a technical and adaptive. And very often, because technical things are more easy to deal with, people deal with them instead of the underlying adaptive challenges. But we know that if you don't really deal with the underlying adaptive challenges, the technical thing just manifests in many different ways throughout the course of every single day. And so a lot of what I try and do is really try and listen to folks and observe what's going on so that I can see those challenges, technical and adaptive, and help coach people or talk people through what is really going on here. What is underneath the surface? What is preventing us from really being able to do X or Y? And the more that I do that, I think it has a kind of a two-pronged effect. One, I think it really helps people see the deeper part of the work, which ultimately I think is the more empowering, the more self-empowering part, and gives them ownership of that. But at the exact same time, that's the hard work, right? It's so much easier to just say, oh, like we didn't complete this form or this didn't happen. It's a lot harder to really do that deep internal look about why we do the things we do. And so, one of the things that I'm trying to get better at is knowing how much to kind of push and pull between the two so that whoever's on the receiving end of that coaching or whatnot is able to get what they need to move the work forward and feel and be successful, while also deepening their ability in their practice. And, it's kind of always a give and take.
That's absolutely no, that's awesome. And I think there are so many, who are leaders in our audience who are thinking about that and thinking about how they might strike that balance themselves. And I encourage them to reach out to you if they want to of course, learn more about that, which is fantastic. And clearly is making an impact in terms of the success you're having there. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, and I know I had asked this last time, but I always want to make sure I ask each time, and potentially it has evolved or changed for you. But there's these tough days, and when especially there can be some school environments, and we've got our teachers and then the parents, as you mentioned, and students, and all of these competing constituencies sometimes, which can, on occasion be overwhelming. Where do you turn for strength, for that sense of inner either, tranquility or inspiration or wisdom?
Yeah, so many places. Friends, family, books, the greats that have come before. But one of the things that I will say is a natural outcome of that, like coaching process and that adaptive leadership, and really thinking about this as a group of people moving towards a thing, is that it allows natural relationships to just deepen. And so right now, I would say that I really lean on the same folks that I'm talking to every day, the same folks that are, working hard every day here, and, really trusting all of us together to have those conversations in good and bad times, to re-energize ourselves and whatnot. So I've been leaning on the team more and more, and it's been great.
That is awesome. And thanks so much, especially for sharing about these leadership practices and approaches, which I think are so relevant to so many who are tuning in. Charlie Ortiz, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Aaron, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to talking sometime soon.